You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
I want to talk about news, don't want the drama. From no pretentious media Madonna. I found me a great ganja mama. Cannabis and coffee with Tamarijuana.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. How's everybody's week going? I must say I'm fucking exhausted. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the weather, because the weather has been like warm, then cold, then warm, then cold. And it's sunny, and then it's gray, and then it's sunny, and then it's gray. And maybe that's what it's doing. It's like seasonal depression. You know, and cannabis does help some people with that. Myself, it does help me with that, but it also helps me stabilize my overzealous brain that never stops ticking. Which, you know, can be very frustrating, having attention deficit. Again, I was diagnosed as a small child, but my parents figured that medication made me worse. So I just kind of floundered through life. And then finally at 52, I think it was, I decided that I was going to figure out what was going on with the squirrel. And between PTSD, and actually it's complex PTSD, and ADHD, this is the makeup of my brain. So over the years, I've, self-medicated with cannabis. Caffeine helped a lot, 100 cups of coffee a day, but that cup of tea before bed that would put me to sleep. I mean, it's really weird how caffeine counteracts a lot of overactive, stimulants help with an overactive, right? So, yeah, cannabis helps with that for some people. I'm not going to say for everybody, because it's not a cure-all in any way, stretch, or form, and it's only medicine for some people. It doesn't work for everybody. As again, why we say there's medical disclaimers. This is not medical advice. This is a patient's experience. I don't even say opinion, because opinions can be taken differently as well. So I say a patient's experience. And I don't like the word patient. Person that use cannabis for medical, therapeutic, yes. There's so many, everybody has their different take on it, perception. And a lot of people don't like taking pharmaceuticals. And I get a little annoyed when people start judging other people because they have to take some pharma. And I was probably the last person that wanted to ever go to a doctor and take any pharma. But I'm one of those people that have to take some pharma. But again, with hand in hand, combinations of this also helps. So, you know what I mean? It's all your personal choice, because it's your body, and you choose what you want to put into it. And I'm not one of those anti-vax, it's up to you. You want to, you don't want to. But I think for public health and safety, a lot of things are necessary. Not necessities, but are necessary. And that would make them probably a necessity. But they're not something that they are necessities. For public health and safety, there are things that we most necessarily should be doing. No, I agree with that either, right? But anyways, that's, my take on certain things. And again, therapeutic medicine, right? Well, it looks like my guest has popped his head in. So it looks like we're going to start with part 3 of our Carl Braund series. We'll call it a Carl Braund series. So I'm going to bring him on in.
I'm having a technical issue.
Oh, you're good. Awesome. I was going to say this is our Carl Braund part 3 of our Carl Braund series.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Can you hear me? I can hear you. Your laptop or what on your phone?
Are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Why?
You're pretty crackly, actually.
I'm having an issue here with my. Hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Can
I
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you now.
Okay, well, there we go.
I can. Okay, let's just carry on like this.
I'm not
I am
getting
so sorry about that.
and there was a bit of crackling with the headphones on, so this is actually better. So yeah, we were going on to part 3 of the Carl Braund series. So
Right.
wherever we left off, you just go ahead and continue on with the rest of the story.
Okay. So I think at the end of the day, I'm not remembering exactly where we left off last time, but
Support knew that they had already dropped all your charges, and I think we were going to pick up from there because it was something that had been done before, right? So I think that's pretty much where we left off.
okay. So I guess at the end of the day, my 2 stories I've been told are rather unique, and I was not aware of this throughout that time. But it dawned on me in the recent past that people need to know what it is that I did, because I think the convenience of silence for the government and for those who are capitalizing on cannabis in the past 10 years, this entire movement, quite frankly, should never have been allowed to happen. And I think really if we were to just stop, everybody just stop, like just literally put the brakes on, stop, get out of your vehicles. Let's talk about where everybody's at right now. Canada, I'm going to blame Health Canada. I'm going to blame, if you just give me 2 seconds, say something, give me 5 seconds. I got to go get a piece of paper.
Absolutely. Again, I agree with that to a point. Health Canada has had a lot to do with everything that was stopping us. And again, like I said before, on Wednesday. Hang on a second here. I'm hearing something in my house too. Oh, it's you.
Okay.
Never mind, it's fine. It's just my son getting caffeine. But like I've said, and I've said this over and over again, and I said this at the legalization roundtables in Vancouver in 2018 before we were even because we were all invited to go out and to these consultations. And I said then, and I'll say it now, until cannabis is recognized as a medicine by Health Canada, we are never going to get anywhere as medical patients, no matter what courts say, whatever fucking Section 56 you could get, whatever ACMPR you can get, when it's still not recognized by Health Canada as a medicine, we're at 0.0.
Correct. And I think that the lag this is a vacation for the feds. This is a vacation for all the lawyers who retired and invested in cannabis. This is all for the law enforcement who retired or didn't even retire and still have all invested in cannabis. And I really would like to take maybe this third show to not talk about my little accolades that were actually two proven capacities for any Canadian civilian to stand up against these illegal laws and actually put a stop to it, because I did, not once, I did it twice. And the second time was even more flamboyant. Is that far more celebrative than the first time, because I really didn't know what I was doing the first time, but I etched my way to the surface and cracked the eggshell there. But the second time, my fist went right through. And basically, what my message is that from the other side, Klaatu wrote a song, Sir Rugglesby. He went to hell and came back alive. I did that twice, and I'm reporting back saying, "Oh my God!" And that's why I brought up the Wizard of Oz scenario with Toto and pulling the curtain from behind, because this entire facade of a Cannabis Act and ACMPR rules and regulations over a free ditchweed, the entire industry that has formed, blossomed, or even managed to put its footing down on the ground, your footing's not on the ground.
No.
Your footing is
The government
all on a pinhead.
Yeah, but again, the government never intended that to be an industry. That was never their intentions. They were never intending for anybody to end up in the stock market with this. It was for public health and safety regulations to keep it away from the children and off the streets and out of gangs' hands to generate tax money, right? So it was never intended to be an industry. Where it's gone to is because we've had law enforcement, lawyers, and all these other people that were already in the illegal industry building it towards what it is. So we have a bunch of gangsters running a legal market and under the facade of some Cannabis Act. And that's the truth.
Oh, yeah. And in 2012, when I was being introduced to Harper's federal cannabis advisor, Todd, okay, anybody could figure out who he is, okay? And he's lying straight out to my face the entire time. And I was, because I have good innate sense to smell rats, and I realized that he was dragging his heels on me, and that I had to jump and get my, which was one of the last cultivation licenses out the door for the MMAR. Now, aside from that, and aside from the 2017-2018 Trudeau ball sack slamming that I did, it didn't matter to me if it's Harper and the conservatives, not the progressive conservatives, which on Ontario ballots have progressive, conservative, and conservative.
They're not even conservatives.
No, it's
Reform Alliance. They're not conservatives. They're
exactly.
Stephen Harper's mega Reform Alliance with a back of fucking Donald.
And I mean, you just Google front porch from Ohio, and you'll get all your answers. Okay, so the thing about where we go now, I mean, you're talking about round tables and stuff like that. I was never part of that. I didn't even know those things existed.
And I really consultation done. Like, that's, I mean, I don't think the average citizen realizes how much consultation was done behind the scenes to get the Cannabis Act where it is.
Okay, and then it just bamboozles me, because again, I have to always, like a really bad irritant, I have to bring everybody's attention back to the simplicity of cannabis on this planet. It is ground zero. It is the starting point of anything we should have been doing in the past 100 years. And the fact that some few people actually distracted the entire populations of the planet from this, it was a diversion so that they could profit off their patented synthetic replacements for cannabis. And again, last time where we left off, I was trying to emphasize the fact that we're all spinning our tires. We're all grouped in this little personal medical use of cannabis here, this little teeny-weeny little ball of entity, where we're also looking at climate, environmental, industrial, consumer and manufacturing habits of utilizing cannabis fiber and everything about the molecules of this plant in any and every way, shape, form possible, so that we can actually remove and replace all the synthetic, patented, toxic synthetics that have replaced it in the past 100 years. We need to get on this really fast. And it's not money to be made from cannabis to be sold like this, and specifically in the medical personal use, little one of 5 major industries here. It is to better understand that the plant is a free ditchweed. It's not patentable, but where everybody's to make their money, not selling a free ditchweed, it's coming up with the miracles that Mother Nature has provided us with one simple solution source, and said to us, is telling us all, has been scratching her head for the past 100 years going, what the hell's going on here? We need to make all that money is going to be made from the applications of the molecules of this plant to get out to the world where it needs to be, where it needed to be for the past 100 years, because we've really fucked ourselves falling down this 1%'s agenda to toxically synthesize the planet. And look, we're all and what world climate discussions, and when was the last time cannabis was even uttered in an environmental or climate conference globally? Never.
Yeah, no, it depends on where you go, what part of the world you're looking at. Because when you're looking at climate talks and stuff in Australia, New Zealand, India, and that part, eastern part of the world, hemp is brought up quite a bit because it's still utilized quite a bit in those countries, right? They use hemp for fabric. It's quite an industry that's been building and growing and trying to be grown over there for 100 years as well, right? Why a lot of our hemp products have to come from Indonesia and come from, over in those areas because they're still producing it over there. They don't have the restrictions because they see it. Like our Western medicine has kind of taken over. But if you're paying attention to what is going on there, the hempcrete and stuff, the industry that's going on in New Zealand and Australia is quite taken off because it's because of climate, because they can grow it quite easily, right?
Sure.
Difference between Canada and because we're cold, right? We only have such a short growing season. Why I think farmers are looking at hemp too for summer fallow in Canada, because there's quite a few hemp farmers that are in southern Alberta, right? They're allowed to go 80 metric ton a year, but they're using it for summer fallow because we all know hemp does pull the toxins out of the soil, which makes that crop be able to be reproduced into wheat quicker than just letting it sit. So they are doing that. The research center in southern Alberta has been doing, the agricultural research center in southern Alberta has been doing quite a bit of research on hemp for the last probably 10 years. So there are certain aspects of the hemp industry that are moving forward in Canada because of people like Rocky Mountain growers that have been producing hemp seeds and putting them out to the public, right? And because vegans and vegetarians and the omega-3s and the fact that there's so much good proteins in those seed have really opened that industry. So I think that we're seeing things progress probably a little quicker, not having anything to do with legalization, but with our diet and with people wanting to eat better. And because of the fact that we're looking at the fact that people are taking meat out of their diets and looking for that protein source, right? Like lentils and beans. Right. Hemp kind of comes into that, right? So I know southern Alberta because I'm out west, right? You're out in Ontario. Yeah. I'm in the cusp of like Alberta's like next door, like I can knock on the border, right? And then Vancouver's like 12 and a half hours away. So I can't reach Vancouver, but I can go straight to and knock on Alberta's door where it's being grown in southern Alberta because I grew up there too, right? So my hand is kind of like in the agriculture area. And even through Olds in central Alberta, a lot of hemp is being grown through there. Right. So there is stuff being done progressively, positively. And because of climate change, whether we want it, whether you believe or you don't believe, that's totally whatever your opinion. But because things are changing, whether it's for whatever reason it's changing, right? We see it with the warmth. Or look at how warm it is. Like you get the extreme from cold to warm to cold to warm. But hemp's, you're right, the answer to all of this because it pulls all the toxins out of that earth.
Right. And yet again, trying to move forward because I just remember somebody saying to me 8 years ago or 9 years ago, like, cannabis legalization, all that, not in this life. And I thought about what that person said, not in this life. Wait a second. Well, so far in this life, not yet, because for generations before me, 1923, I wasn't born in 1923. I was born, I don't know, 50 years later or however many years later. And there's a few generations in there that have all been sold down this Western medicine river and rapids, I should say, waterfall maybe. And generations later, when you start putting that word, MJ out there and everybody's minds, I'm thinking, for all these years. Oh, do you remember quack? The term quack came out back in the day when this motion was being put into gear back in the 20s, where Western medicine, if you're not a Western medicine doctor, you were to be labeled a quack. And that's because you're not selling the toxic synthetics that all these universities were being bamboozled into buying, getting all this free equipment and stuff, and training and teaching all their students about Western synthetic toxic patents. And in the meantime, cannabis was, being shunned. People were, like my mom, when she moved away from her little islands there, and she moved to Halifax back when she was a teenager. She moved in with a couple that the husband was a chiropractor, and back in the 30s or whatever, a chiropractor at the time was then being labeled a quack. So she was just like, she was French speaking, not English, and she went to Halifax to learn how to speak English, and she was learning lots of stuff. But one of the things that she brought, long before I even knew of even knew what cannabis was, when I was young, she told me about the doctor being a chiropractor, and he was being shunned and he was being labeled a quack because he was not. He was naturopath sort of thing, right? He was not Western medicine, and that was happening back in the day. So that all was taking place very effectively for these companies to diabolically convince universities to take their imaging equipment. We'll give it to you for free. As a matter of fact, we're going to give you $100 or $1 million back in the day, for your university, as long as you agree to put one of our members on your board. One of our big pharma members on your board.
There was such evolving science back then too, and there was quacks on both ends of it. Like, let's face it, there was Western medicine, doing all kinds of kind of like grisly, experiments and stuff like that on human bodies. And, there was a lot of different things going on in the early 1900s that I think we all found a little bit disheartening. But again, as science and homeopathic, medicine has moved forward, because, the evolution of natural medicine has actually moved forward quite a bit, considering where it was in the 20s, considering to where it is now, right? You can actually have a registered homeopath take care of you and have your insurance pay for it, where 20 years ago, they would have laughed you out of the insurance company, right?
Sure.
So, I think, again, everything evolves in time, and nothing's ever going to be perfect, Carl. As much as we'd love everything to kind of fall into place and be perfect, that's never going to happen for anybody. So we just kind of have to roll with the situations that we're given. And I think that the fact that we're not staying silent and that you're coming forward and you're speaking is the reasons why we keep moving and evolving forward, because every story makes a difference, right?
Oh yeah, especially the ones that I had lawyers come to me and say, "Oh, the things they don't tell us." These are Canadian lawyers who were never privy to the information that I had busted open for them, and the only lawyers.
It's not law school, they only have so much time and so much precedent setting, law that they can actually teach them in a certain time that they're given, right? Many, like I said, when I went to go to court, lawyer I had didn't even know not one lick about cannabis possession law, not one lick, because they don't teach any of that in law school, because it's something that's specialized, right, in criminal law. So criminal law is a big aspect of one course that they take, and then you got to specialize in either homicide or cannabis or drug or whatever. And if these guys are coming fresh out of law school and you say, "Hey man, I've been charged with cannabis possession," the guy goes, "What? What's that?" Seriously, they don't have a fucking clue. So first, as somebody who's been charged with it, you yourself, you're gonna know everything about what the fuck, right? And this guy's going, "I don't even know what you're talking about." So hence why I represented myself too, because this idiot who just spent 7 years in law school didn't know shit.
Yeah. And okay, so now to go back to the law itself and everything about the Cannabis Act, and I really, again, going back to the simplicity of this entire argument, that everything we're talking about is kind of moot. Everything past the Cannabis Act and the ACNPR, actually go back deeper down to that rock, that the gear where the iron rod gets jammed in, is the knowingly wrongful scheduling of cannabis as a narcotic. Right. And I think once Health Canada is literally buckled to their knees and forced to admit, and I would like nothing better to be standing in that room witnessing it.
Here's a little thing, and I've got a show coming up in the future, like
Yeah.
on March the 25th. It's going to blow some of the lid off some of this that we're talking about,
Okay.
because we have a patient that's actually doing some clinical research and trials. I'm working on some things that is going to blow the doors off Health Canada's whole aspect of even using it in raw form for dietary needs,
Mhm.
right from the seed up, right? Having
Yep.
nothing to do with it being a smokable THC, CBD, CBN, anything,
Right.
right from the ground up. So when we're talking about cannabis as a medicine, we're talking from root to seed to root and all that in between. And how do you regulate the in between before it even gets to the THC level, right? So these are
Right.
things that have to be proven right to Health Canada in their form, and it's being done. So, but again, we also had a guest on last week or the week before on Pace Radio that told us that all the studies that we cited of Israel are bullshit. There's no studies going on in Israel. It's
Oh,
bullshit.
so who created that absolute bullshit facade? Who?
Bullshit. They just put stuff together, and it was like one person that did one testing, one thing, and it all came out. Apparently, it's bullshit. Propaganda being made up by the Israelis. Propaganda, and this came right from a soldier from Israel
Right.
that works in
And
the industry now in California. So
okay. So, and it goes back to all sorts of crazy things because, like, whether you agree with Rick Simpson or not, the oil is from the plant. Okay.
I 100%. I'm on board with that shit.
Okay, but I'm just saying I don't want to get into
And it doesn't work for everybody, right?
right, but it's not
the individuality of the therapeutic medicine, right?
which is true,
right? We're not doctors. We can only give our experience because we don't have any medical training. And
right.
again, that might not be anything we like to hear, but I sure the hell am going to get sued for telling somebody to go do something that they shouldn't be doing.
Oh, for sure. And again, when people are talking about, people put words in my mouth and say, oh, cannabis isn't going to cure everything. I never said cannabis would cure anything. Cannabis isn't going to save the world. I never said cannabis would save the world. I simply emphasized that cannabis is the planet's best foot forward. Period, for everybody across the board in all those different industry sectors, including personal health and all those different ones. Cannabis is a staple that offers. It's almost like Mother Nature and Father Time got together and said, "What can we put together and give the planet so they have a one-stop shop?" And they came up with cannabis. And literally, the few human beings in the past couple of hundred years who had this Wizard of Oz idea that, hey, you know what? That plant is a huge threat to our profits, to our potential profits over the next 100 years. So what we need to do is come up with a diabolical campaign to absolutely snuff this plant as deep into the shitter as we possibly can, so that's out of the minds of the general public. Period. And that was the mission.
Yeah, well, that stemmed from George Washington and the cotton industry.
So here we are today, still riling of the fact that that absolute beautiful miracle answer to so many of our today's problems that have been created by its absence, you simply bring it back. Now, I can't emphasize enough as a single human being on this planet how important it is that we do this tonight, because it happened overnight. It was taken away from us, literally, outright, overnight, period. So that the next morning when everybody got up, oh, it's illegal. So you know what? Enough conversation, enough Health Canada and their poll-stroking corporate cesspool, sex, gross, toxic abuse of our charter and our free choice of primal medicine. That's just medicine. But also, I want to make a house. And I don't want to use all the industry-approved toxic crap that's being offered for house building and everything like that in these days. This is just not. It's just not going to happen. And I think that the sooner, like I mentioned last time, if it has to start, you're saying New Zealand, Australia, they're all got this hemp thing going and everything like that. Good
I'm
for
just
them.
talking about, we're going to take a quick break for 3 minutes, and we'll talk more about hempcrete, and I'll bring up some information on it. But there are, and I've got some friends that are actually are homesteading up in northern British Columbia that were building a house up there on the grid that we're going to be using like a dirt form, like the Mexican dirt housing, right, where you stomp dirt down, clay housing, which is something they're using too because of the long-term longevity for that. But hempcrete is something we're doing in Australia. So we'll take a quick break. Thank our sponsors. I'll bring some stuff up on the internet, and we'll go back to talking about hempcrete and the building of your house in a minute.
And the future of the world.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be right back after a quick break. Thank you.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
All right, we're back. Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about building a house and how, renewables, how there's hempcrete available. Now, while we were on break, I actually did a Google search and found, actually, let me see.
Drum roll.
This
I said
one.
drum roll.
So we've got this. This is actually a Canadian company that I found. It's called HempWorks Canada. And they're also producing hemp and showing you how to build housing out of hempcrete. So there are many, so there are other industries that are kind of moving along slowly, as as they can be. But I know some friends of mine were looking at doing the same thing, or they were going to build the house in the shape of a spaceship, and have the front of the house all be a greenhouse, all full of glass. They could continue, so they could grow sustainably, like all year round, right? Like trees and everything as well, right? So that was our idea. But there's this stuff that, you know, you can. And there's no, when you're, depending on where you are, I guess, right now, I know because of the housing crisis in our town, every project that you want to do, any permit that you want to get, there's zero cost to it.
Okay.
They've taken all the costs off of all permits for building out here.
Unbelievable.
You know,
So,
yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of a like I'm going to blame the Harper government. I'm going to blame Trudeau's government because all of these jackasses, individuals, saw money to be made, personal money to be made in this quote unquote industry. Once they fudged the numbers and fudged the words and fudged everything with the Cannabis Act and the ACMPR.
I will tell you exactly how we got here with this housing crisis. It's got really nothing to do with building and lack of building. It's got everything to do with realtors and municipalities and Stats Canada being shut down for 5 years. So when Harper shut down Stats Canada for 5 years, there was no growth being shown for any municipalities or any regions for 5 years. So when the provinces went to the federal government to say, hey, we need our transfers for housing to help, Harper's government was able to say, well, we don't have any numbers to give you because we aren't showing any growth.
Isn't that something, eh?
Right?
Isn't that an asshole? If I've ever heard of one.
Okay, so then in hindsight, then the municipalities still had to figure out how they were going to be able to legitimately raise property taxes. Well, that means that your housing assessments for your properties would have to be assessed higher. Hence, in comes the fucking greedy realtor who would love to fucking raise the prices of your fucking houses because then they could get higher commissions to line their greedy pockets.
Of course.
The municipalities and the realtors went into cahoots so that they could raise property taxes to keep generating money to keep our roads and our pools and all the things that we need that the federal and the provincial government weren't giving them because there was no stats to go off of.
Yep. Okay, so check.
Then the Liberals got in, had to reopen Stats Canada and start re-spending money that had been cut back. Hence why we're in such a far deficit, because they're having to fix all the shit that fucking loser did before.
Of course, and this goes on, and this is all the thing about the partisan differences between us Canadians. Well, there is no partisan differences between us Canadians. It's the lies coming out of their big fat mouths, quite frankly.
Who did what? You have to fucking fix it. And right now, I don't care who's fixing it. This is about people, okay? Take the politics out of it. This is about people and what people need. And what people need is housing and jobs and economic stability. And this is a non-partisan issue. None. Just get the fucking job done. And we have MPs from all different sides of the fucking spectrum. Depending on where you are, my MP is a conservative, okay? So I'm relying on my representative to represent me, even though I might not have voted for him. And you might have something, you might not. But this is what where the problem is. We've got partisanship on one side banging so hard with hate, and the other one's just trying to do their fucking job, including the NDP, the Bloc, and the Liberals, where the other ones are just out there. That's how I see it. And
so, Tamara, back in 2011, 12-ish, I was doing, I did a number of years, I had the opportunity to do, when you go around to consensus, the census, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
And I was hired by the Census Canada or whatever the department was as a specialty unit. We were specialty trained to deal with hard crack cases, right? Yep. The holdouts. And I mean,
I understand people don't want to give up their business. But if you don't have your business, the government doesn't know you're there and they can't fucking help you.
Yeah, and these are people coming from war-torn countries and places where their governments were corrupt and everything, and they don't trust the government, period. So, like we were trained that actually people on the other side of the door may be holding a shotgun at us. Okay, it was a really interesting niche that I had an opportunity to be part of. And one of the coolest things was, because I'm a bit of a chit-chatty guy, I'd knock on a door, I'd have my little badge, they look through the eyepiece and see that I'm with the government, and they like, no, blah, blah, blah. So finally, I went to one guy that I was working with me, and I said, look, I'm having the darndest time. And, they say, no, go away, I don't want to do blah, blah. So one guy said, well, he explained to me that Harper actually doesn't want the census to go through. And I was like, what are you saying?
You want,
And he explained to me that if the census actually goes through, Harper's trying to put a stop to it. If it does go through, he's going to have to answer to these numbers. And then I went, oh, well, that's a perfect tool for me. So I go to my hardest, toughest cases door as an experiment, and I knocked at the door. Get out of here! Get off my property! And I'm like, I'd like to speak with you, sir. You know, oh, no, you're the census guy. I said, no, I need to tell you something. So he opens the door, and I said, let me put it to you this way. Harper doesn't want you to sign this. Okay? And he's like, what? And I explained to him, if you sign this and give this information, these numbers are going to go to his office, and he's going to have to respond. But if nobody
answer to you, but if you don't,
yeah, and if the census doesn't actually formulate and nobody answers and all that, he's free reign. He could do what he wants. You know what he said? After maybe 3 weeks of me banging on this guy's door, he goes, give me the pen, give me that right now. I'll fill it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so it was just a matter of perspective.
You had so many people that it worked up, thinking that they were digging into your personal information, and that's what that was the messaging from the conservative government at the time. We're digging into your personal information. We're filing this all. We're digitalizing. They weren't, but they need to have certain numbers to be able to show population growth. You know what we were told here in Cranbrook? We have one high school. Our population went from 15,000 to 20,000. At 15,000, because there was lack of any stats, we didn't need a high school. Well, now we're at population 22,000. We still have one high school, and the government's still saying that we should have gotten you a new high school. Well, no shit, Sherlock. But when there was no stats to go off of, and we had a conservative. We had the BC Liberals, which were not Liberals. They've now the United BC Party. It's like the UCP in Alberta. They changed their name.
Right.
Party. When Christy Clark was running the province, and that's why we never got a new high school. And we've got fucking like 2,000 kids going through one high school that's asbestos ridden that my mother went to in they graduated of 1964. The high school was built in 1929. It's the same high school.
Asbestos filled.
That riddled fucking, it was disgusting. And this is what we're putting our kids through, right? They built a $3 million fucking Key City Theater on one side, and they got a $3 million grant to upgrade it on the other side of the high school, and the high school is falling apart on the other side of the building. It's fucking disgusting.
There's a Max Webster song, and the lyrics say the left hand doesn't know what the right hand does.
Fucking right, Scott.
You know? Do you remember Max Webster?
Yeah.
Okay. That's an important piece of Canadian history.
Well, actually, we're going to find out here. His name is Max Webster.
Yeah, what's that?
I said I have a friend out here. His name is Max Webster.
Ah, awesome. I'm just trying to break up some black hash here, and it's sticking to my fingers. So, okay, so
I mean, we know that we're living in this time of fucking where cannabis is actually now being called cannabis and not marijuana, which is also a step forward. They've actually started calling it what it is.
Yeah.
It's Cannabis Act rather than the Marijuana Act. So we've brought them that far, to be fair. We actually can say that we have come a ways. Whether it's your court cases, whether it was Jason Wilcox, whether it was all these other people throughout the years, Allison Murden, Debbie Saltz-Giffen, Terry Parker Jr., like how many do we have? Matt Myrna, there's thousands. Pat Wernicke, like there's so many people across the country that have been fighting in the courts for decades, right?
Yep.
And we've come along.
We have, but at the end of the day, I think I mentioned last time that I'm however many moons I've been on this planet, and in the last, since I was 17, I've been labeled because of my choice of resolve for my mental and physical issues, and but like everyone else, we just sort of grinned and bared it, and then moving forward to today, in hindsight, of course, with my father passing of prostate cancer at 77, my grandfather passing of prostate cancer at 77, for frick's sakes, I need to put a stop to that. Okay, and as a matter of fact,
you're doing I hope you're You're helping yourself along with a little RSO.
But doing the little bit that I can. But in the meantime, I'm trying to come up with simple analogies about cannabis so that the layperson can better understand what is actually going on. And it came to me a little while ago. I was a site supervisor for Elections Canada or something. I did a lot of that stuff for provincial, municipal, and federal.
I've been there.
And and it's pretty wild. And they always wanted me back because I was such a neutral person, and I called everybody out. I mean, we had scrutineers coming in with red jackets and why? Playing stupid and all that kind of crap.
Nonpartisan stuff. No.
Yeah.
Allowed to wear anything, not a badge, nothing. Yep.
Yeah. So all these things were kind of going on about. I guess with the different partisanships and stuff like that. But when I was learning about the differences with the differences with the provincial politics, and that's again back in a few years ago was the progressive conservative Canadian Progressive Conservative Party. But on the ballots in the recent past, it's been the Conservatives. This is for an Ontario vote, and then a Progressive Conservatives. They have two different runners, and I had scrutineers come in one day, the RoboCop year, when that's why I mentioned Front Porch from Ohio, the source of the robocalls and the RoboCop calls, and so it turned out that year when I was getting people showing up at 5 minutes to 9 going, I was sent to another school. I'm going, huh? Who would he called you? It was weird. I had a whole bunch of these people showing up, and then it was the next day when I heard on the news about the robocalls that I actually phoned the elections office and said, that sounds like what happened to a whole slew of people at the end of the day that came in last night. Now, in that same election, when I was out supervising that poll, the scrutineers showed up, and this was when they had the PC and the Conservative two candidates on the card. And then the scrutineer comes in for the PC candidate, and then another scrutineer came in for the Conservative candidate. And I said, well, okay, hold on a second. You both, because they screwed up. They didn't even know, and they both put the same
numbers
information. And I said, hold on a second. I thought you were representing another party altogether. Well, what's the difference? That's what they said to me. Well, what's the difference? Hold on, as a site supervisor.
You have to know the difference of what party you're representing.
Well, but the fact is, even they didn't know, let alone somebody marking the ballot. Do you get it? So they're sucking all these people into thinking that it's wise to put their check mark or their dot or their blood drip or whatever the hell they wanted to use on that candidate. But we've got two candidates running pseudo for the same gang. And I thought they're splitting votes here. Like, I mean, they're actually, this is just, it's mind-boggling. Okay, and this still goes on. So it's all these little things that are happening as we speak. And when I look at the situation, like if I was in a board meeting or something like that, I'd ask, who's responsible? Which individuals around this table are actually responsible for this outcome?
Elections Canada are responsible for watching.
And I got to say, Elections Canada for sure. But it's, again, it goes back to the nonpartisan parts of handing that federal baton to one gang to the next each time there's an election and a new party coming in, or an old new party, or a bunch of crooks that are waving colors saying, "Oh, we're waving red, white, and blue. Therefore, we're conservative." The old progressive conservative. Well, hold on a second. No, you're the Christian Reliance Reform Alliance Party under President Manning. that it goes down to Harper, that goes to what are the other fools that
the fool that's standing right in front of you right now, which is
yeah, and how would I? You know what? I wish he wasn't. I wish he'd stood as an independent because I'd give him my vote. Polivier or whatever. He's a smart guy, and he looks great without his glasses too, by the way. And you know, he's just sucking up the BS and spewing it out like everyone else.
Yeah,
Sorry.
He's been Harper's minion since he was 24 years old. He's been groomed and brainwashed to be a Christian Reform Alliance since he was 24 years old. He doesn't know any better. Just like Jason Kenney didn't know any better because they've been groomed by Harper since they were young, right? Straight out of university, career politicians, never known any different. How else do you explain it?
And you know, at the end of the day, that Christian Reform Alliance stuff, all this thing about women and equal blah blah blah, you could flush that all down the toilet because it's the men who run the show and the women stay home and look after the family, and that's the Christian way, apparently. So I just found it very lip service for them to be toting women's rights and women's anything and equality, this, that, and the other thing, when they're spending so much energy quietly pulling up this facade. Well, you know, when you're telling the truth, you don't have to do fuck all. You just tell the truth. When you're trying to uphold a lie, you're spending energy.
Right? You're spending millions of dollars.
You're glowing. Yeah, you're glowing on the heat sink. And to some people who have a filter to put up like a thermal filter up and look at somebody, somebody once told me the most entertainment I get, the cheapest, most exciting entertainment I get is when people lie to me and think I don't know.
Well, they're insulting my intelligence.
It's like, it's entertaining. It's sad, but in a way, it's semi-entertaining to be able to watch to identify somebody who's bullshitting you, and thinking that, you know, like the Emperor's new wardrobe. Look at me! Look at my beautiful new clothing, dude. You're stark naked.
That's a problem. A lot of Canadians have lost their logic over the last 3 years. It's like if we all thought like Spock, we'd all get it. But nobody thinks like Spock. They all want to think emotionally and think that all these things are and take everything personally. And guess what, fuckers? None of you are that important. We are a wheel we are a spoke in a wheel that they need. They do not want to kill off our population. They have no tax dollars or money to keep the country moving. So they don't want to kill us all off, you bunch. Like, and again, you're not that important. Like, stop it. But no, everybody's got no logic anymore. They're just like, it's paranoia. You guys are smoking the wrong strain. I don't know, but it's getting scary some days. Like, it's scary some days with some of the stuff in the rhetoric. And I wish people could learn that we all need to get along. Like, in this world, we just need some peace. And if we could just quit minding everybody else's business, stay in your fucking lane, do what you can do in your own community, help who you can, reach out to your neighbor and be a kind person, we wouldn't be here.
No, absolutely. So I think I think truly, you mentioned insurance companies. Well, insurance companies, somebody told me that the insurance companies are actually the biggest culprits in the cannabis crux back in 2012. Somebody told me this. Yeah, well, and I thought about it.
Some of them cover, like some of them will cover medical now. You have to be purchasing, of course, from a licensed producer. You are allowed to anything over $300. You can take your receipts in from a store and declare that on your taxes. Now, whether you get a tax break or not is pretty much up to the government. Sometimes you don't want to bother because that's when they start auditing you, when they start seeing oddities for your medical expenses on your taxes, right?
So what do you do when you're spending money to patients for your only prescribed medication that that's the only source that patients have, and yet unable to declare those expenses? It's interesting.
I would check I would check with an accountant to see if they can on your taxes, right? Because of the facilities of it. So I'm thinking that might be I'm pretty sure you can do that now.
Well, that may end up being something that people are going to find out, that they have to take up that challenge at some point.
Because
So
I believe you can actually declare so much on your taxes. And again, I believe that it was Sun Life, depending like if you're working, like I know that provincial governments aren't covering it. And that's something that they really should be doing. If you're on OSDP, if you're on, ACE in Alberta, if you're medical and you're on disability, that is your prescribed medicine. The province should be paying for it. That's my opinion.
but okay, now
Something that should be being worked on.
right, but this is where the racket kicks in. You're not going to send me to an LP to buy my meds ever, okay? But
we should be able to be compensated for what you're going for yourself.
Right. Now, for those on special dietary needs and stuff like that, they're given X amount extra to cover the added expenses.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, this should be treated parallel, exact parallel.
I agree 100%.
And I could give you an amount per month that I have to spend on out of my pocket, wherever it's the fucking coming from. And I rarely have that. That I have to spend that, every certain amount of days. Forget the month.
I would consider cannabis under a dietary need, and I would actually, and that's kind of a way that, like I said, this next guest that I'm going to be having coming up here soon would be also looking at it too, because the consumption shouldn't matter. It's the dietary necessity of it for a dietary supplement, no matter whether, so if we can bring it down to a dietary supplement, then that would be some way of having the insurance portion of it being covered, right? But again, it should be. I agree with you 110% that a certain portion of whether you're getting it from where you're getting it, who you're getting it, it should be covered.
Yeah, and how would you cover somebody who's spending cash to fellow patients who aren't making profit? So it's not like as if they're actually making something to go to. That would
be considered under gifting, right? And you're allowed under the legal market to gift 30 grams. So you would just have to do it as a. Unfortunately, I don't know how a barter would be, like, because that's not really an expense. So if you could do it like in a barter, somehow make it so it looks like a barter.
It's a barter.
A donation?
Barter for goods or services. It may even be for services, but for some things like. But then again, that comes back to why are we even talking about all this stuff in the first place? Because somebody's watching over us to make sure that somebody doesn't do this or somebody doesn't do that. And my big question is, who the fuck are you looking over me down in Health Canada or the federal government? Ooh, you jackasses! Who are you? Who are you? I'm actually looking down at you because I'm morally correct. You're immoral, so quite frankly, you're screwing everybody. So you're down there. I'm actually looking down at you, you federal tax-paid creeps, as well as the Health Canada creeps and all the pharmaceutical creeps, because they're up to no good. So when it comes down to it, why are we even wasting our breath and our time and our energy talking about this? That's why outright overnight, by tomorrow morning, the next meeting, whatever, they'll have, at the end of the day, by the time that sun breaks the horizon over there in the east, cannabis is no longer a regulated entity. It is now something like, let's look at milkweed. Let's right now, I'm just saying that, but let's just look at the regulations and rules on milkweed. Bah, right?
Well, if they actually did that, that would take out the recreational industry too.
No, recreational. Recreational can go down the toilet where it belongs, because it never existed. Okay, we never talked about recreational. I don't even that bothers me, because that was Trudeau's bullshit, and I'm going to call you out, Mr. Justin Trudeau. By the way,
that was the way of keeping the licensed producers producing, because they had invested millions of dollars.
Yeah, well, you know what? Again, it was the baton that was handed over, and they're just hoping that it doesn't blow up on their clock. Okay, look at the indigenous situation with the kids all being taken away from their families. That was a baton that was being passed on. That was an example of another one. Okay, that was being passed on from one federal government to the next. Shh, don't talk. Just keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. Don't let anybody talk about it, and then all of a sudden, kaboom. Yeah. Okay, Oh yeah, but this cannabis is another one of these little hot potato batons that they don't want cracking open on, and they've done everything and anything they can. Harper tried to snuff it too, and then Trudeau took over saying, hey, I got a better snuffing lie that Canadians are going to buy, and boy did they ever. And he can go stick it up his self-entitled jackass as much as the rest of us. And you know what? My mom died. I got 2 photographs of Justin and my mom, because my mom adored Justin. My mom actually danced with his dad in Montreal at a big ball back in the day. Okay. But I got 2 photos of Justin and my mom, a little selfie. And I was in the meantime, in the second photo, he was out in Georgetown or something. I was in the meantime fighting him on my mom's behalf to get her cannabis, because they were sticking toxic synthetics in her senior's ass. And quite frankly, I was like, you're killing her, but you're killing her. And she has expressed and shown positive signs and very acceptable on trying this plant. And she was never given that freedom. I was never allowed to do it. And she passed away in a very grotesque form of my mom that was down to injections of hydromorphine, because she stopped eating, because they had destroyed every organ in her body in the 2-3 years that she was in Georgetown's senior home there. And that's every senior home. And we had do you remember Sam Malachi? Sam Malachi? Okay. Sam Malachi, he lived in Georgetown. So Sam, I had the phenomenal opportunity to meet up with him. And we actually met in Georgetown. It took me 2.5 years to arrange a meeting. Okay, check this out. My mom's senior's home at the hospital in Georgetown. And the CEO of the director of care, a nurse, doctor, the head doctor, Sam Malachi, my brother-in-law, and myself. And we all had this huge meeting about my mom's care. And 2.5 years it took me to get this coordinated. We go in there, the director of care was like a little broken box and broken record. She's going, well, I'm sorry about the CDFA. Actually, at some point, when the 4th time she repeated it like a broken record, Sam actually, out of frustration, stood up and goes, I can't take this anymore. I'm leaving. And the doctor even said, oh, no, Mr. Malachi, please don't go. The doctor was learning so much from Sam. It was stunning. My brother-in-law, who was he? Okay, let me give a bit of background on my brother-in-law. He wasn't willing or able to do anything because he worked for a big pharmaceutical company, okay? And he was about to retire. So in his thinking, like all the doctors and all the police and all the lawyers who can't talk against their oath, he couldn't talk jack shit about cannabis benefits or anything like that because of the company he worked for, and he was retiring. What a way to get blackballed at the end of the year, he didn't do it. So finally, after the pension went in and the checks cleared and everything like that, he texted me. He sent me a text and he said, Carl, I've been reading what you've been ranting on about for years now. He said, 100% accurate about your assessment of Health Canada racketing this entire thing, because he was dealing with Health Canada himself all the time, and he knew, and he had to put up with the lies that he had to endorse with his company, because that's all they do. That's Health Canada. They're in bed. They're all greasy with KY jelly with themselves right now, making profits and people dying and everything like that. They don't give a flying shit about us, okay? Health Canada and their corporate pole stroke buddies. So here I am in a meeting at the seniors' home trying to explain my mom is suffering. I've already given her cannabis in various forms. She vaporized, found a relief, topical bombs, bang on every single time, and pain management. So just to let you know that the stuff you're giving her every single day, the pharmaceutical, money that you're churning here, is killing her and everyone else, and the lady who died in the bed before her, and the lady or man who's going to take her bed after she moves on. So in my eyes, they've got a huge, and I brought it up in the meeting, they got a huge internal courtyard. And I thought, you know what? You know how many plants you could fit in there? And for God's sake, you know what would cheer up a bunch of seniors more than actually gardening?
Right.
Let alone gardening their own food and medicine.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Come on, man.
Well, my dear, we've wrapped it. We got to wrap her up again. So we've done it. We've done part 3.
I thought you got the 90-minute slot.
Oh yeah, we can go on a little longer if you got the time. We've got the 90 minutes, so we can do that if you'd like to. Yep.
Okay, well, I think really this is just a shout out to humanity. We need to stop this 100-year crime of the century. It's one of my favorite bands, Supertramp, and the crime of the century. I don't even know what they were referring to as the crime of the century, but I've identified the crime of the century. It's cannabis prohibition, and it is the root of all evil in the past 100 years. So moving forward as a planet, if again, we need to really learn the people who are hired and paid to look after Canadians' well-being and health and freedoms and all that stuff. Well, they need to do their job because they're doing anti-job right now. They're working for themselves right now. And quite frankly, it's not government, it's management. If we look at this as a corporation and a business, they're management and they're failing. So what do you do with management that's failing? I'm just curious. You fire their sorry asses.
Yeah.
And you hire people who can actually do the job. And quite frankly, I got a few albums to record before I go. Maybe I got some time to run a country. I don't know.
Right.
I'm good. I'm offering. I'm not going to suggest, complain without giving some kind of a.
Well, my biggest thing is I wish people wouldn't be complacent. I hope that everybody votes. And I don't care who you vote for. It's, just even if you put your own name on the ballot and go out and vote, at least you did something. But if you sit back and you do nothing and you sit complacently by in silence, it's not helping us move forward either. Right?
No.
And that's all I have to say about when it comes to voting. I think it's my civic duty. I feel like if I don't do it, I've let somebody along the way down, including my children and my grandchildren. I might, So again, we have to keep looking forward to our future. We have to live in the now, of course, right? We can't, be worrying and stressing about what might happen in 20 years from now. But if we don't start putting our best foot forward, being it be with hemp, being it be with cannabis, being it be with psilocybin medicines too, there are so many new things that are coming forward. We're just going to stay stagnant.
It's not even new things coming forward. It's old stuff being snuffed.
Old things that are being rejuvenated. And I think that because more people are aware, more people are speaking out, more people aren't afraid, right? And I think because of cannabis being normalized to a point that it's making it easier for psilocybin to come along hand in hand. I think, and I really believe that it's because of our work with cannabis that's actually led the way for psilocybin medicine as well, right?
Right.
And because we know that in the past, opioids have been used for centuries. Cocaine was used as medicine prior to, the addiction portion of it being so addictive that it, and that's where, the breakdowns for a lot of pharmaceutical medicines are. Even now, you can't take opioids for any more than 72 hours. Your body's going to be addicted to them. And if you're mindful when you're having to take any pharmaceutical, knowing what the limits are, researching, the positives and the negatives to that side effects, then you're more in tune with what you can, your body's availability to take it or not, right? Cannabis is something that really doesn't give many people side effects. Now, there are people out there, I hate to say this, but there are people that are allergic to cannabis that do have cannabis, right?
One of the biggest growers I knew was so allergic to cannabis that it drove him nuts, and he was a dedicated. He was so dedicated to it that he just had to put that aside and drive himself through it.
Right, but again, like there are negative sides to everything. I'm not saying negative, but there are people that have issues with everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Pre-existing dispositions. Let's not forget.
My dad, everybody knows my dad was sick. I had to go to Lethbridge. My dad's allergic to penicillin, okay? It's been twice since my mom and dad have been married ever. So he was so infected that doctors had to decide to take a risk on either giving him penicillin and either making him better or killing him. And they took the risk, and penicillin is what kicked him into being better. Whereas years ago, the penicillin that they had then would have killed him. But now, because of progressive science, the penicillin now, there was no, it helped him. So we've evolved in so many different directions. Stop it, you guys. That, you know, and as we go forward to cannabis, there will be research, right? There are people making different products. We've come from being raw flower to all kinds of different products now that are being made, bombs and bath bombs and all kinds of different things that we didn't have 20 years ago either. The evolution of the market, right?
No, but it's still not good enough. It ain't good enough until it's absolutely let go. Period. End of story. I'm not kidding. I mean, the importance of fixing and resetting this plant to zero, ground zero.
Yeah.
And and again, it was that I might have mentioned it. It was at a lift show that I had a conversation with this guy, and he didn't realize what he invested in because I told him all the background. It was like blood diamonds, right? And it was that investment, that conversation that I was having with him, that people didn't realize that you know, when you're investing in something, it's twofold, because you're doing yourself a short-term gain for long-term pain. Maybe, I guess that's what it ended up being.
What's most bothersome to me is when I hear somebody that's in the legal market wanting to take out the gray market or take out the people that are helping patients in compassion clubs. And that's really bothersome to me, because how could that be affecting your life in any way? Right?
That's the legal market.
Exactly. And I just think to myself, like, if it wasn't for the people that paved the way for you with the illegal market, you wouldn't have a business to begin with. And I had, like, the first dispensary in Kimberley, she had the audacity to say that she didn't want to have anything to do with anybody that was involved in the illegal activities of activism. And I looked at her and went, if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have a business.
It's so weird to hear somebody like the mind that
and then owns the first that license for, and this is before legalization. This was a medical dispensary. They got a business license from the town of Kimberley. They were scouting the first one in Canada that had the audacity to say, "I don't want your kind around here."
You know, it's absolutely stunning. So here we are, you know, over these years when I was witnessing all these people, and we mentioned this before about free the weed, and then the next thing you know, it's like, I didn't say that. There's money to be made. Well, hold on a second. You know, you really, really, truly need to take a back seat now. No, as a matter of fact, about 5 years ago, you should have just, you know, disappeared, because that's not helping you. It's not helping your kids. It's not helping anybody. And as a matter of fact, like, if it was just helping you, that would be one thing, but it's actually not. It's working against yourself. And the sooner you realize that, the better. So at the end of the day, we're going to be wrapping up and stuff like that. And I don't know if I'd ever be invited back onto your show or have the opportunity to say this kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is good. Like, this is exactly what we like to put forward. These are the kinds of conversations I like to have. Because if we don't keep having them, then anything that we try to keep moving forward, because this is not perfect. There's always room for improvement, right? And the ultimate goal when we started this, well, when I started this in 2007, was to have cannabis removed off the CDSA, have no laws attached to it at all. Law reform, yes, have it regulated into a certain system that it was making it so that it was away from the kids. The gangs weren't getting rich off it. That it was just, like, not a commodity anymore. So if it was legal, then it was no longer a commodity that could be used as a street contraband, right? Because it's just not there. It's just not there to be used. Period.
Right. And the other argument about the illicit market and all that stuff, if you bottom out the price to zero, you just wiped out any interest or concern about an illicit market. But the illicit market, it was that 1,000% inflated historical street price that the federal government maintained. moving forward, that was
$1,000 a plant.
it's like, hold on a second. Really? And again, it comes back to Todd, and Todd was Harper's guy. The other guy was Jay, and his last name starts with T, and there's 3 syllables. I don't want to say these names because I don't want to give them away. I want somebody to look them up. And JT was Justin Trudeau's federal cannabis advisor, who was sitting across my kitchen table that night that I gave my $10 and became a member of the Federal Liberal Party. And he was there explaining to me months prior to March 31st, 2013. So this might have been about a month and a half before that, before we were told to grind our stuff into the kitty litter. And he, as a liberal federal cannabis advisor to Trudeau, was sitting there telling me, well, no, you're going to lose your gardens. You're going to lose your gardens. You're going to lose your capacity to make your own derivatives and everything, right? He was explaining this to me, and I'm like sitting there, no, as a matter of fact. In the next 3 minutes, the exchange that happened between the two of us, he was literally scrambling to grab his papers and get out my fucking door as fast as he possibly could, because he couldn't listen to me anymore. As I'm telling him, you're so wrong, buddy. You're gonna pay for this, whether it be professionally or personally. You're gonna pay for what you're saying. And he was out the door. Jay Telegdi, okay, that's his name. And the other guy, Todd, I don't remember his last name, but 2 Ds, yeah. Todd. They're both on Facebook. But Jay Telegdi, as a matter of fact, after that little exchange, the only Jay Telegdi profile that showed up was some young girl's face. 14-year-old girl was his profile picture. And I actually called him out on that. So you know what? He and his party and his Trudeau and all his henchmen and all that stuff who devised all this.
I was with the Young Liberals in 2014 at the convention that wrote the Cannabis.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
No, Normal Women's Alliance, me, Kelly Coulter, Sandra Colasanti, we were all there when that was being written. And it was Young Liberals that actually brought that into policy. It's been tweaked. This was before Trudeau was even this is when Harper was still in power, right? This was just after Trudeau had become the leader of the party.
Okay.
Election. But it wasn't the Cannabis Act. It was the cannabis policy that was making it so that it would be able to be put on the ballot so that it could be brought forward in the next election to see what people wanted more as a referendum to see if cannabis should be legalized or not. So we pushed the policy through at the 2014 election in 2014 to make it so that cannabis could even be brought forward to even have a Cannabis Act to be even looked at to begin with. Because it had to be pushed forward as a policy in the party. So I was with Normal Women's Alliance at that point in time. Dana Larson was there too. There was a bunch of us. Judith Ronald. We all went out to Montreal in 2014 and attended the Liberal convention to make sure that got through so that cannabis was actually part of the Liberal policy.
So again, here they are hijacking. And then right after that, the 2 court cases for the derivatives, extracts, and edibles, and then the gardens and all that stuff. And it was like, and even sitting there listening.
If the Conservatives would still been in power, we'd still be in court with that fucking ruling in BC. They would have appealed that, right? The Liberals decided, I'm not going to bother, right? So that still sits in an injunction. It's not even a finished court case. It just sits in an injunction. At any time, they could pull that injunction. So thankfully, they didn't. But if we had a Conservative government, if we get a Conservative government, that could easily be changed in a heartbeat. Owen Smith went to court after that, and that is sitting in the Supreme Court, a counter ruling. That can never be changed.
Right.
Again, they could have appealed it, and they didn't. So backwards folding, if we would have had different governments at the time those court cases went through, we could be sitting in appeals right now, and they could still be fighting it through. And they didn't. They just went, okay. Because at the end of the day, they knew that they had to do something with cannabis. There was no way they could get around it because of the industry that had already been started, because of the fact they wanted to take our gardens away, and they knew that they'd have to give us access. And that's something that I'd always thought about. Our mandate with Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partner was dignified access. So now, because they've got all these stores, the government can come back at us and say, you've got dignified access as patients.
Dignified access. Well, you know what?
Opinion, right? That's their opinion. Now, for us, there's some people that still don't have access. Some people still have to drive thousands of kilometers or hundreds of kilometers to get to the nearest store. Some towns have opted out of cannabis retail, so there is no store. So that doesn't mean, and we still have, but see, they've come up with this new cannabis marketing license and new medical licensing. So you can actually open a medical dispensary. Now, this is all new stuff coming out of legislation as we move forward because other pieces of portions, but provincially, because the federal government handed everything back to your province. So
right, but it
has its own regulations that are all different all the way across the country.
Right, but here's the thing: everything, and I don't think you and I could emphasize it enough. But it's something that has to not only stop them in their tracks, but it has to knock. They need to see stars and stand there bewildered for a moment as to what just happened to them, because when it comes down to it, everything that all these were again moving forward based on needs to be wiped. Needs to be wiped, clean, off, slate, goodbye, reset, fix, done.
I'm not sure how that could be ran legally, because in hindsight, to have that removed off the CDSA, yes, they could, but again, Trudeau still cannot do that alone by himself, I don't believe, because you'd have to put it through as a legislation, go through the motions of Parliament, have it voted on, blah, 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 right? Senate. Not sure he has the power to actually just remove stuff himself without taking the proper steps of bringing it forward as a motion, going it through legislation, being voted on, going through Senate, blah, blah, right?
Yep.
That's, I think, where we're at with the whole thing. Because I know that he can just wipe it. The government, the Prime Minister doesn't have that kind of power, right?
Okay, so I'm going to once again strip everything from what you just said, and I'm going to ask on April 23rd, 1923, after hours on Parliament Hill, when somebody actually by hand went and stuck it in the pile on an omnibus bill, by the next morning, all this was in effect.
So as many checks and balances as we've got now.
No. So again, all I'm saying is that if you create a lie that quick, you need to shut it off that quick. Right. And quite frankly, there's no excuse, there's no lie, there's no anything legislation, any kind of hyperbole, any kind of discussion, any kind of anything about the fact that it was created and it closes. It's shut. The way it opened overnight, it closes overnight. All the rest of you, go whine somewhere else, because I just declared adios to my dad, and I declared adios to my mom, because they didn't have this plant. And how many friends ever since that I've had to watch suffer, myself included, and die, and everything like that, all about this one little lie that happened outright overnight. And ever since, we've been spinning our tires over it. So
end off, like it was just end off prohibition.
Like that's again, it. Finish next morning.
I'm pretty sure, like I said, I'm pretty sure it would have to be in different steps these days. Would have
to. You get me at that.
I'd have to
you get me at that round table or that board. You get me to sit in that room, Tamara, and I'll show you how it's done.
Well, if I had that kind of power,
oh my God,
I'm not that important. I mean, like I said, I have sat at the table with the Liberals. I've been to caucus, but again, it's not that I've got the power. I was invited by, other people that have connections that got me in these places that, have had connections with the Liberal government for years. I do have like a seat at the table on some aspects, but I'm not anybody that they come to on a regular basis. They don't care. No. Like I said, it's not that they don't care. I can't say that they're busy. Like I honestly wouldn't want to be them. I wouldn't want to be having to deal with this shit at any point in time. That's probably the hardest job besides being a parent, is being the Prime Minister or the President of the country. I would never want that amount of pressure.
No.
I
wouldn't either, but just
anybody who's in public service, like, to be honest, like, they put up with a lot of shit. Every one of those MPs we've got right now have to have security because we've got nutbags out there. These are being threatened. I really find that disturbing.
It is. It is very disturbing. But when you go and give back the people what the most important thing in their existence. Just give it back to them. All of a sudden, a lot of that gets alleviated somehow. The way it was manifested over years, this hate towards the politicians and the corporations that are actually, the culprits in all this. Well, golly geez, let's stop that flow in that direction and start working our way back into the direction bearing that we as humans infesting this planet need to actually be headed. This is bullshit. That's not. We will see the light of day this way, and we're just going to, what's the word?
Depolarize ourselves.
Yeah, it just creates its own little shitball.
Yeah, I think it takes people on both ends of the spectrum talking to each other and coming to some sort of in between, agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And instead of
but at the end of the day, be reasonable and do it my way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like logically, you know what I mean? That's the thing. There's got to be some logic to this. And I've said to many people, I've got a stakeholder's position with the Ministry of Transportation. People go, well, how did you get that? Well, by not going in with a pitchfork, going in and talking to them on a professional, very professional level, and seeing and weighing out both sides of the spectrum, right? And understanding that we're all different and we're individuals and we all have different perspective on everything. Yeah,
but a lie is a lie, and it needs to stop.
A lie is a lie, straight up. I mean, I don't play any games with. It's got to be fact. That's what I mean, logic and fact, science, fact, and logic. And I mean, that's just I don't want to hear any bullshit conspiracy theories. I don't want to hear how you think. I don't know. I'm very straight, blunt, to the point. I don't want to hear it.
All right. Well, listen. Once again, awesome. And
and we'll have it back in. So like I said, I've got a guest coming up that I think everybody's going to be looking really forward to. It's not until the 25th of March because it's an anniversary date that we're waiting on to have them come on again. But the next couple weeks, I'm just going to be probably rolling with whoever wants to come on and talk about whatever they want to talk about, because that's what we're here for. We're here to educate other people about cannabis medicine, cannabis law reform, cannabis patient stories. That's all that we want to do, is keep on informing and educating people. So I want to thank you again for spending 3 consecutive weeks with us. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to share all of this information on your story with us, because it was really important to get this information out. I really appreciate that. And again, probably we can have you back, and in a couple of weeks, I think Al might reach out and we'll have you on Pace. It's just that we don't want to put back on like my show and then Pace right away, because then it's just kind of like the same thing, right? Yeah. So probably in a month or so, we'll have you come on to Pace too.
Thank you.
You betcha. And again, I want to thank our sponsors for putting up with all my stuff, and thanks to Al and everybody on CBG TV. Well, you have a great week. We'll see you next week, and I'll see you Wednesday on Pace Radio. Good night, or good day, and what day? I don't even know what time of day it is. It's dark. Bye.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.